What I have here today is a tent from a company that's known for their hunting bags and clothing. The name of this company is Kuiu, and the tent that I'm talking about is the Mountain Star 2-person tent. My name is Luke, this is the Outdoor Gear Review. Thank you very much for tuning in. I purchased this tent a few months back, and since that point in time, I've been testing this out. In fact, I have 4 trips with this tent so far. One trip was very windy, very rainy. The other trips were very pleasant and warm. With that being said, with the testing that I've done so far with this tent, I could say to you all that I'm very, very impressed with this shelter. This shelter has a lot of really interesting features to it. Features that you typically do not find with your average 3-season tent. It really does offer quite a bit of capability for the money, and at the same time, it's very lightweight. And it's important to say, this tent looks awesome. Seriously, my friends, as far as appearances go, this is one of the best looking tents I have ever seen. Wait until you see this setup. The color combination, it's sick. Before going any further, it does need to be mentioned that this episode is completely agenda free. I purchased this with my own money. I've never spoken to this company before. This episode is all about sharing information, my thoughts and opinions concerning this tent. That means if you decide to purchase this tent after watching this episode, great. It doesn't benefit me in any sort of way. With that being said, everybody, let's go ahead and take a look at the Mountain Star 2-person tent. For some reason, I want to call this the Morning Star, and I may slip up. I think back to Castlevania. Anyways, it doesn't matter. Folks, thank you very much for joining me. Let's get started. Starting off, we're looking at the storage bag here. Of course, we have the name of the company, the name of the product. We have a grab handle on the back side that also has the name of the product, so you can easily identify this tent. Up at the top, we have a draw pool. We have an ultralight ground sheet. We have the tent stakes, we have the tent poles, and we have the tent itself. This tent features 3 poles. On the tent itself, you have colored sleeves. That way you can get everything aligned and in place correctly. And just like that, everyone, the Mountain Star 2-person tent has been set up. When it comes to the setup process, it is very, very easy. Everything here makes sense. You have 2 poles that are the exact same length. Everything here is color coded so that they are seated in the proper orientation. We have a 3rd pole which is smaller that goes across the top. Again, folks, this is very, very simple when it comes to the setup process and also the breakdown process. With this tent here, we do have pole sleeves in conjunction to pole clips. This is a 2-person tent. It has 2 doors, each with a storm flap over the zippers. The tent has 4 guy lines, 2 on each side. We also have 2 vents, 1 on each side. When it comes to the doors, the stakeout points are adjustable. When it comes to the sides of the tent, luckily, on one side, there is a loop here so you can attach a line to it and pull it out for better airflow. Unfortunately, on the other side of the tent, you do not have this option. With that being said though, the airflow inside of this tent is amazing, primarily because we have 2 vents, and also the rainfly itself is rather high up, so you can get some really good airflow going underneath that, which will then go inside of the tent. With the door panels, you can roll back 1 or you can roll back 2. If you do 1, it provides you with quite a bit of vestibule space. Certainly enough space for your backpack, boots, and so on. Because this tent has 2 doors, the other side of the tent has the exact same features. Now when it comes to the body of the tent here, it is covered in mesh. On the inside of the tent here, we have 4 mesh pockets, 1 in each of the corners. We have a bathtub floor with tape seams. We have zippered access to the vents. That way you can control the vents from the inside of the tent. So maybe you go to bed with the vents open, a big storm comes in, you can close the vents from the inside of the tent. Folks, that is huge, as most tents do not allow you to do that. Up at the top, we have the placement for the gear caddy, which is included with the set that I purchased. I have not installed that yet, and I don't have it with me at the moment. With that being said though, there is a hanging line at the top of the tent for you to use. Now everyone, I want to measure the inside of this tent for you all to give you accurate dimensions. I do this in every single tent preview review because I do not trust the dimensions that companies give. Oftentimes they give you the dimensions on the outside of the tent, not the inside. The inside is far more important. So, as far as length goes, we're talking about usable length here. This tent is 78 inches long, which is 6 feet 5 inches. As far as width goes, we're looking at 41 inches, which is 3 feet 5 inches. As far as the height goes, we're looking at 37 inches, which is 3 feet 1 inches. There you have it everyone, that is the Mountain Star 2-person tent. Let's take a second here and let's go over some stats. To start off, it's important to know that there are 2 versions of this tent. A 2-person version and a 3-person version. This here is the 2-person version and it has 2 doors. This is a semi-freestanding tent, meaning that the body will set up with just the poles, but you do need to stake out the doors. This is a 3-season tent. It is available in 2 color combinations, gray and brown, which you see here, and there's also a high visibility orange and gray. The store dimensions are an impressive 18.5 inches by 5 inches. Talking about the materials for a second, the fly is composed of a 15 denier silicone treated ripstop nylon that has been PU coated. The floor on the inside of the tent is a 20 denier silicone treated and also PU coated ripstop nylon. The mesh is a 15 denier nylon. When it comes to the poles, you do have a choice to make. You can get these with aluminum poles or with carbon fiber poles. In this case, I went with the lighter weight option, which are the carbon fiber poles. The waterproof rating for the fly is 1200 millimeters, and the same is true for the floor. As far as the weight goes for this tent, the entire setup is 3.6 pounds on my scale. Lastly, the retail price of this tent is $480 for the tent alone, and that is fairly expensive. But get this everyone, there's a sale taking place. This is the same deal that I went ahead and purchased. You get the tent, the gear caddy, and the ground sheet for $352. That, my friends, makes this tent much more reasonable and also more realistic for most people. That price includes the carbon fiber poles. If you want to drop about 10 bucks, you can get the aluminum poles. With all of that out of the way, it's now time to go over my impressions, thoughts and feelings, and my experiences with this shelter. So right off the bat, the quality of this tent is very, very good, and it should be for the price. For this price, if there were any sort of issues, I would have returned it. Luckily, there's no issues here. All of the seam work looks great. The seam tape looks great. There's no loose threads. There's no issues with the mesh or anything like that. Without a doubt, this is a very well-made tent. As I've already mentioned, the setup process and the breakdown process are easy with this tent. We do have sleeves here, but luckily they're very smooth and they're of a good size, so it's not much of a struggle to get the poles into or out of those. Plus, we have the clips. Everything here is color coded, it all makes sense. Once you get used to the setup process, you can have this set up in about 7 minutes, something like that. You can have it broken down in about the same amount of time. One very impressive aspect to this tent when it comes to the setup process is that this features what is known as a fly first pitch. Meaning that when you go to set up this tent, the fly is pitched first. That way the inside of your tent stays dry. So you can set this tent up in the rain, the inside stays dry, only the outside gets wet. That is an awesome feature, and it's a feature that's rather uncommon here in the United States. Outside of the United States, namely like in Europe, tents like that are very common. But here in the United States, you have enter first, then fly. So without a doubt, if you're someone who camps in a wet environment, this is something that you should consider because that is a very impressive and very important feature. As far as the amount of space that this tent offers you, it is adequate for 2 people. This is a true 2-person tent. There's enough space on the inside for 2 people. You have the vestibule space for additional gear, backpacks, boots, and so on. For 1 person, this is a palace. The tent itself is large enough so that both individuals on the inside can sit up, change clothes, and so on. This is a fairly long tent, so if you're around 6 feet 5 inches and lower, this is going to work for you. When it comes to the storm worthiness of this tent, I have to say I've been very impressed with the Mountain Star 2. Not the Morning Star 2, the Mountain Star 2. This tent has been 100% waterproof for me. At the same time, the ventilation inside of this tent has been incredible. This really is a fantastic 3-season tent. The fly is raised just enough so that you get good airflow from underneath it, so you don't have to worry about that much condensation. With that being said, condensation is possible in any tent, but with this one here, it is very well controlled. You have airflow coming through the vents, going underneath the fly, on the sides. All of that translates to good airflow and condensation control. Additionally, once the tent is staked out and guyed out, it is incredibly solid. The pole structure here is very rigid, and that means that this tent handles wind exceptionally well. Because the airflow is so good inside of this tent, I would not recommend this for 3+ season use. I bring this up specifically because the company, they mentioned that this is a 3+ season shelter, and I have to disagree with that. Typically, when it comes to a 3+ season tent, they are known as hybrids. With the inners, hybrid tents will have a combination of mesh and fabric. With this tent here, there's no fabric at all, meaning the entire inside is covered in mesh. And what does mesh do? It allows for airflow inside of the tent. Hybrid tents have that combination of mesh for the warmer days, then you have the fabric for the cooler nights. That fabric holds in a little bit of heat, it blocks some wind, and that's why those tents are known as hybrids, or 3+ season tents. This tent here, there's no fabric. This is through and through a 3-season tent only. Now, of course, you can use this in the cooler months if you want to, but you need to be prepared for airflow, for wind making its way inside of this shelter. It is not going to be as warm as a 3+ season tent or a 4th season tent. As far as the appearance goes of this tent, I have to say, this is one of the best looking tents I have ever seen. I absolutely love the color combination here. We have this dark gray color with the brown. It looks awesome. For some reason today, so many tent manufacturers are producing these Teletubby colored tents. I personally don't like them. Most of you don't like them. I hear about this all the time. People write in all the time. They're looking for a tent that looks cool and performs well. Nobody wants a Teletubby colored tent. So it's really refreshing to see something like this. A product that really looks cool. It looks rugged. With that being said, your opinions may be different, and that's fine. You like what you like. For myself, I think this is one of the best looking tents I've ever seen. Next, everyone, we need to talk about the weight of this tent along with the stored size. The stored size is very reasonable for this shelter, and when it comes to weight, this is very impressive when you consider the size of this tent and just how storm worthy it is. For less than 4 pounds, you have a 2-person tent that pitches with the fly first. It is rock solid in strong wind, completely waterproof, and the quality is great. I mentioned a little while ago that I purchased the combo set, the tent, the ground sheet, and the gear caddy. I received more than that with my purchase. I received the tent, the gear caddy, which I forgot to bring out here. I received a brown ground sheet and also a gray ground sheet. The gray one is lighter weight than the brown one. I'm not really sure why there's 2 different ground sheets. The gray one is very lightweight and the brown one is lightweight. The brown one is just a little bit more than half a pound, and the gray one is a whole lot less than that. And that takes us back to value for this tent. When you look at this shelter at the retail price, which is $470 or something like that, this is a very expensive tent. But when you look at it from the sale price with the combo kit, this makes a whole lot of sense. This is without a doubt, a very versatile shelter. And if you're someone who's looking for a tent that has these features, there's not much competition to this. Even at the full retail price, I really do like what I'm seeing here, and I would consider purchasing it. Luckily, there is a sale taking place, and if you want to save some money and you're interested in this shelter, you may want to jump on that deal, on that bargain. Again, folks, it doesn't benefit me at all if you decide to purchase this tent. All that I'm doing is sharing information, and that's that. Ultimately, this is a smartly designed and highly capable tent, and seriously, it looks so good. The reason why I keep bringing this up is pretty simple, and that's because most modern tents simply look so bad. And that, my friends, is a great way to wrap up this episode. Make sure to sound off in the comment section down below. Share your thoughts. What do you all think about the Mountain Star 2? Hopefully, I haven't called it the Morning Star. Do you remember that from Castlevania, the whip? Anyways, folks, this is an excellent tent. I can easily recommend it, and I'm looking forward to continuing on using this as we go into the fall. For myself, I don't mind tents with a lot of airflow in the fall. I enjoy the cool. I enjoy the cold. But of course, your preferences may be different. If you have found this episode helpful, please hit the thumbs up. It does help the channel quite a bit. If you want to support the Outdoor Gear Review, which is a channel that is completely agenda free, this channel is all about sharing information and nothing more. You can support the Outdoor Gear Review on Patreon and here on YouTube. Everybody take care, be well, strength and honor. Bye for now.